Hello, my name is Phil Barnhart. I am the president of the Emerald Valley Electric Vehicle Association, which is a chapter of the Electric Auto Association, a group of volunteers dedicated to education about and adoption of electric vehicles. Tonight's program, Rev Up Oregon, is sponsored by Emerald Valley Electric Vehicle Association, along with our partners, the City of Eugene, Eugene Water and Electric Board, the City of Springfield, the Lane Regional Air Protection Association, what I called LRAPA a moment ago, and a number of other local consumer-owned utilities. And we're very happy to have all of that sponsorship. You are in for a treat tonight because we have a great presentation with our presenter, Charlie Loeb, who has owned electric vehicles since 2016. His family presently uses an electric car, an electric bike, and Lane Transit District buses to meet all of their transportation needs. He has a professional background in transportation, including a master's degree in regional planning from Cornell University and a certificate in sustainable transportation from the University of Washington. A former resident of Alaska, much of his transportation work centered in the Denali National Park and Preserve, including the park's bus system and transportation connections to surrounding communities. So please welcome Charlie Loeb. Charlie, take it away.
Great. Hey, thank you so much, Phil. And thanks to all of you for joining us here this evening. Our goal is to provide you with some really good information to help you decide whether or not an electric vehicle might be with you, might be for you. And then secondly, if you're already looking for an electric car, thinking about an electric car actively, to give you some information so you know more of the ground that you're working on, what to look for, and hopefully some hints and tips that will make it, give you the information you need to effectively shop for an EV. A couple of quick Zoom tips before we launch into the slide presentation. If you're looking at the screen on a computer, if you point to the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little tab that says View. If you click that, and you can either see all the squares, the gallery of everyone who's participating in the meeting, or if you just want to see the speaker, you can click on Speaker View and just have the person who's actually talking show up. We are going to ask that everyone stay on mute and keep their video off just for the beginning part of the presentation. You can find those buttons down in the lower left-hand corner. If they're not immediately visible, you can just point to that part of the Zoom screen and they should pop up. And finally, the presentation's just going to be 35 minutes or so, and then we're going to save a lot of time to answer your questions. And you can go ahead and pose your questions while we're going through the initial presentation by going to the chat box in the middle of the bottom of the Zoom screen. Pull that up. If you hear something go by and you have a question about it, just go ahead and type that there. We'll start out the question and answer period just by running through the questions in order as they showed up in the chat. So feel free to go ahead and make extensive use of that for answering your questions. So now I am going to share my screen and then see if we can't get this presentation started. And for some reason, it's always a little reluctant. There we go, to really get started here. All right. So rev up, starting your personal vehicle journey. And again, our goal is to help you figure out whether or not an electric car is for you and to help you do the best job of selecting an electric car if you already know that's the direction you're headed. Now, we'll talk about all these different things, and we can talk about more if you have questions that are unrelated to this particular agenda. But first, we'll discuss why go electric, why choose an electric vehicle. We'll discuss the benefits of electric vehicles, the difference between ICE and electric vehicles. I'm going to use that acronym ICE quite a bit. It just means internal combustion engine vehicles that run on gasoline and diesel. We'll talk about cost considerations when comparing electric and ICE vehicles. We'll talk about things that may make you nervous about adopting an electric vehicle, including range, charging, and batteries. We'll talk about things that save you money, and then we'll get to that question and answer I promised at the end. Now, to define the field a little bit, what are we talking about when we say electric vehicle? In general, the term covers any kind of vehicle that runs at least in part on electricity instead of an internal combustion engine. So looking at this diagram, which kind of lays out nicely what some of the options are, on the far left is a hybrid electric vehicle. This is one of the people who joined the conversation here early mentioned they have a Prius. A Prius is the archetypal hybrid electric vehicle. There's still an internal combustion engine that runs on gasoline and a gas tank, but there's also a battery and an electric motor, and the regenerative braking, energy generated by the process of braking, charges that battery, and then that electric motor supplements or draws on the battery to supplement the power provided by the traditional engine, thus making it more efficient, getting more miles per gallon. Classic hybrid electric vehicle. A step up or a step towards electrification from the hybrid electric vehicle is the PHEV, or the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. Very similar to the hybrid electric vehicle, except it has a bigger battery, and you can charge that battery directly from a wall outlet. You can plug the car in, that battery will charge up, and the car typically will be able to go some distance just on that electric battery and electric motor alone. Often it'll go somewhere in the 20s in terms of the number of miles before that internal combustion engine needs to kick on. And the, totally spaced what I was going to say there next, but it still uses the regenerative braking that the traditional hybrid does as well. I was going to mention that there are these plug-in hybrid vehicles that can get up to, up to 50 some odd miles, like the Chevrolet Volt that's no longer manufactured, but it's still widely available in the used market. We're going to spend most of our time talking about the third in this diagram, the battery electric vehicle, or BEV. Here, we're getting rid of the gas tank or the diesel tank. We're getting rid of the ICE, the internal combustion engine, and we are just going to have a big battery. We charge by plugging into the wall, and then we run an electric motor that drives the car. The reason we're going to spend most time on this kind of electric vehicle is because this is where people start getting uncomfortable about their knowledge about how a car works. Like, we're pretty comfortable with the hybrid electric vehicles. The plug-in hybrid electric vehicle still will work like a traditional gas car, but by the time you get to the battery electric vehicle, you're really dealing with a different creature here. And so it's this creature we're going to try to explain tonight. I should give an honorary mention to the fuel cell electric vehicle, which actually carries hydrogen on board and creates an electric current by running it through a fuel cell to charge a battery and run an electric motor. We don't presently have any access to these in Oregon, and there's no hydrogen fueling infrastructure. So it's not really an option here. So we're not going to talk about it at all tonight. This technology is lagging behind the battery electric vehicles in terms of consumer adoption. So these are the types of vehicles we're talking about. Upper left-hand corner is a Chevrolet Bolt. The middle upper is a Nissan Leaf. Lower left is a Tesla, which is recognized as the car that helped bring electric vehicles to the attention of the average consumer in the US. And then the soon-to-be coming vehicles that are suitable for light-duty use, like the electric pickup trucks and SUVs that are on their way and arriving soon. There's all sorts of activity happening around fleet vehicles, heavy-duty trucks, forklifts, garbage trucks, fire engines, and other kind of vehicles, but we're not going to be talking about any of those. Likewise, there are a bunch of small electric vehicles, electric bikes, electric scooters, one-wheels you may see zipping around town, or Segways, which is an old electric vehicle technology, but still around in some niche uses. And of course, the Arcimoto motorcycle class vehicle that's manufactured right here in Eugene. We're dealing with cars and light trucks tonight. Any of these are worthy of their own program, and some of them may get one in the future. And depending on what your need is for an electric vehicle, one of these may well suit it. And I'd be happy to talk about that with you all offline at some other point. Now, let's move on to the benefits of electric vehicles. And to start with, let's talk carbon. That's what is often on people's minds when they think about the transition to electric vehicles, and they're thinking about it in terms for reasons of ecological and environmental concern. I want to share with you this graph from the City of Eugene's Climate Action Plan 2.0. It shows where emissions, greenhouse gas emissions in the Eugene area come from, and how they're projected to increase from 2017 to 2030. And you can see that in the 2017, when this was put together, that about 53% of emissions are actually from the transportation sector, then followed by building energy and then other kinds of fugitive emissions. While this is for the city as a whole, as a resident of the city, your own personal contribution to greenhouse gas emissions in town are likely to some degree to mirror this. And for many of us, transportation is going to be the greatest source of greenhouse gas emissions that we personally contribute. And so if you can switch to a vehicle that doesn't burn gas or diesel and doesn't have carbon emissions, then you can go a long way to personally helping move us away from producing as much in the way of greenhouse gas and climate changing pollutants as possible. Now, of course, the question immediately comes up, well, so the electric car itself doesn't produce any carbon dioxide in the process of making the car go. It's not burning a fossil fuel. But how about where that electricity comes from? Because we're charging the battery from a power plant somewhere. And this is often brought up by the detractors from EVs saying, well, if you're burning coal to make the electricity, then aren't you creating just as much pollution, but displacing where that pollution is happening? The Union of Concerned Scientists has actually looked at this pretty carefully nationwide, and they replicate this process every couple of years where they go around and they look at the amount of energy produced by various, in terms of the energy mix that's in different areas. You know, it looks at the number of power plants of nuclear, coal, natural gas, renewables, hydro, and then computes what level of how efficient your gas-powered car would have to be more efficient than an electric vehicle. And as you can see here in the Pacific Northwest, you would have to drive a car that got 102 miles per gallon in order to do better than the average electric vehicle in this area. Even in places that are heavily coal dependent, like the Midwest, you'd have to drive a car that got 39 to 49 miles per gallon in order to have a fossil fuel powered car that emitted less carbon than an average electric vehicle. And I'd have to say that these numbers, like I said, they do this study every couple of years. These numbers go up every time they do it because the grid is gradually becoming greener and less carbon intensive. So as time goes by and we add electric sources to power the new electric vehicle transformation, these numbers are going to be even higher. Your fossil fuel powered car would have to be even more fuel efficient in order to compete with an electric car in terms of emissions. Now here in Lane County, really, we probably do better than the 102 miles per gallon equivalent because most of our power comes from hydroelectric and doesn't emit any carbon at all. So when we're pumping electricity into our battery, we're not really releasing any greenhouse gases. In fact, EVEVA has actually done a study on this where they looked at the carbon emission equivalent per year in the EVEVA service area. Now, those internal combustion engines, you can see emit somewhere over 3.5 metric tons of carbon per year on average. For an average electric vehicle, that number is under 1. And EVEVA concluded that each new electric vehicle that replaces an internal combustion engine in EVEVA service territory translates to a 2 3/4 metric ton reduction in annual carbon emissions. And I think you would find this is true if you buy your power from one of the local utilities out of the EVEVA. I think you would find this is probably roughly equivalent there as well. Now, of course, the benefits of electric vehicles for the environment go well beyond avoiding greenhouse gases. The oil industry is extremely polluting as a way of providing fuel to run cars. There's toxic waste in the production of the fuel. There are oil spills in transportation. All of us, many of us will remember the Exxon Valdez oil spill, which famously up in Alaska. There's air and water pollution from refining. There's noise pollution. There are often human rights concerns in areas that are, particularly in the developing world, where oil is a major industry. And then there are just the tailpipe emissions of burning all these fossil fuels in small little power plants in everyone's cars around our cities. This one actually matters a lot to me. In fact, the American Lung Association has looked at this and concluded that the widespread transition to zero emission transportation technologies could produce emission reductions in 2050 that could add up to $72 billion in avoided health harms, saving approximately 6,300 lives and avoiding more than 93,000 asthma attacks and 416,000 lost workdays annually due to significant reductions in transportation-related pollutions. This is from a report that the Lung Association put out just last September. The damage done to the environment from the oil industry goes well beyond emitting greenhouse gases. I should say from the oil industry and from running vehicles that are based on internal combustion engines. Now, that's not to say that electric vehicles are without their environmental harms. Again, there is toxic waste in producing the materials needed for batteries in electric vehicles. So there's air and water pollution that comes from producing electricity. Battery disposal remains an issue. And there are human rights concerns in some of the areas where minerals for batteries and other electric components are mined. I think each of us, to decide which is worse would have to weigh these two lists. But at the very least, even if you leave greenhouse gas emissions out of it, if that issue doesn't matter to you at all, there's still quite the case to be made that environmental vehicles are cleaner and better for the environment than vehicles that are powered on gas and diesel. There are also benefits to electric vehicles that go beyond the environmental. Drive quality. So for instance, electric vehicles are very, very quiet. So quiet, the electric motors are so quiet that when there are requirements in the US and Europe that are going to be implemented over the next few years to actually add artificial noise to the cars when they're traveling below a certain speed to avoid surprising unwary or hearing impaired pedestrians. Electric vehicles are incredibly fun to drive. They provide instant torque. When you step on the accelerator in an electric vehicle, you get all the torque on your engine that car can provide. It makes the drive very fun and zippy. As someone who typically has driven sluggish 4-cylinder engine cars for my entire adult life, I would say that my electric vehicles are the first cars I've ever owned that have been fun to drive. Finally, they provide a really smooth and low vibration drive. It's just a very comfortable place to be in an electric car. Electric cars are also extremely efficient. If you're driving a car powered by fossil fuels, most of the energy that you pump into your gas tank is completely wasted. It doesn't actually make the car go. The thermal losses, the heat losses and friction losses from the engine and from the drivetrain are a huge amount of the power that you put into the car. And by the time the energy gets to the wheels, there's only 16 to 25% of that energy you put into the car is actually making your car go. By comparison, for electric vehicles, the losses in the system are very small, and the power to the wheels for the electricity that you pump into your battery 69 to 73% of that power actually makes it to the wheels and makes your car go. And then once you add the regenerative braking, which can put in up to 17% more or recover 17% more of that, the electric vehicles are 86 to 90% efficient. On an energy usage alone, electric vehicles clearly outcompete their gas-powered counterparts. So there are some technological concerns for capturing all those benefits. Another thing I love actually most about electric vehicles is the simplicity in maintenance. The ongoing maintenance for electric vehicles is quite minimal. You got to worry about wiper blades and your windshield wiper fluid. There's a cabin air filter. Got to check your tires, make sure that you're rotating them to prevent uneven wear. There is a little bit of motor coolant. And you do, of course, have brake pads. Although, because of the regenerative braking system generally provides much of the slowing power for the car, you don't use the brakes nearly as much as you do in a gas-powered car, and the brake pads last much longer. Meanwhile, you can say goodbye to this whole list of usual maintenance from your ICE car. There's no air filter, no fuel filter, no oil or oil filter, no fuel injectors or pump, no spark plugs, alternator, power steering fluid, no radiator, hoses, timing belts, or water pump. Much, much simpler to maintain an electric vehicle. And as a result, as you might expect, the operating cost for electric vehicles are much lower. And we can look at that both the fuel cost and the maintenance cost. And EVEVA here has actually done a fuel cost estimate for electric vehicles. And you can see the comparison on the side. And this is estimates for a gas car getting 25 miles per gallon at $2.75 a gallon, and then looking at what it costs to get the energy from EVEVA to power your car. You can see on fuel, electric vehicles will save you a tremendous amount of money. Consumer Reports, meanwhile, has surveyed its members who own electric vehicles and discovered that the maintenance costs are about half that of internal combustion engine cars. Again, no surprise given the simplicity, the maintenance regime, the maintenance that's required. I would have to say that when I got my first electric car and went looking through the manual to see what the maintenance was, it took me a long time to actually even find the quarter of a page on which the maintenance information was listed. And there was basically one item I had to worry about in the course of my 3-year lease, which was rotating the tires. Now, of course, you also have to worry about the cost of the car, the EV compared to a comparable gas-powered car. And I'm going to refer you to this tool, and we'll provide you this link in an email once after the program is over. This vehicle cost calculator provided by the U.S. Department of Energy allows you to plug in a couple of different cars and then plug in how you use a car, your daily driving distance, how often you drive, what percentage is highway, how many miles do you go. And then it will compare the cars and show you how the total cost of ownership over the life of the car compares from one to another. For kicks, I'm going to run a sample for you looking at the 2020 Hyundai Kona, which has both an electric version and a gas-powered version. So they're very comparable cars. And so how do those look? For total cost of ownership, purchase cost, and all the maintenance and all the fuel. And you can see here, the blue line is for the electric car, the red line is for the gas-powered car. And the electric car starts out a little more expensive than the gas-powered version. And because there is one assumption you can't change, which is that this assumes a 5-year loan with a 10% down payment, the higher purchase price and thus the more interest you pay on the electric vehicle means for the first 5 years, the electric car is more expensive. But after that, the gap starts narrowing because of those lower maintenance and fuel costs. And after 15 years, there's not that much difference between the two. And you could look at that and decide whether the environmental benefits, the drive benefits, or other benefits of electric vehicles make it worth it to you to make that extra investment over 15 years. But this graph actually leaves out one thing, which is I did not count in the value of any state or federal incentives for purchasing that electric vehicle. And when you add those in, oh my gosh, now this changes the graph dramatically. Here, by taking into account the federal and state incentives, the purchase price and the sort of initial, those first 5 years, the total cost of ownership are pretty similar, but after that, the electric vehicle is actually cheaper to own. So let's talk a little bit about things that may make you nervous about electric vehicles. And we'll start with range and range anxiety, because this is the thing that makes people nervous. What happens, I'm going to drive my electric vehicle. What happens if I get somewhere, my battery is out of juice and I can't go any further? Because electric vehicles do take a little longer to refuel than gas-powered cars. Now, certainly range anxiety was worse before we got to the past 2 or 3 years, where the ranges of cars have jumped up quite a bit. Back in 2016, 17, a typical range of an electric car might be around 80 miles. But looking at for the 2021 model year, you can see that the ranges are considerably higher. Nissan Leaf, about basic Nissan Leaf, will go for 149 miles before needing a charge. The Nissan Leaf Plus will go 226. The Hyundai Kona we were just talking about will go 258 miles for a charge. If I could just ask everyone to make sure your mic is muted, because I am getting a little bit of someone else talking over me, and I just want to make sure everyone can hear. And you can see the ranges stretch all the way up to the Tesla Model S, which gets 412 miles before needing a charge. EVs can go a long way, and the next question is, well, if I am concerned about range, then which one do I pick? And of course, it all depends on how you will use the car. And I'm going to introduce you to my first electric car, a 2016 Chevrolet Spark. Now, this is one of those little cars that only got 80 miles of range before it needed a recharge. But we bought this car, or actually leased this car for 3 years, simply because, or as a second car, we still had a gas-powered Prius, a hybrid Prius, that we would use for longer trips. So if we were headed out of town on a 1 or 2 or multi-day trip, we would take the Prius. But this was the commuter car. This was the car we used around town. We'd occasionally go as far as Coburg or Cottage Grove. And for an in-town car, for a second car, it was perfect and it was delightful. And honestly, we didn't want to give it up when the lease ran up, but we decided to because our needs were changing. We had realized that an electric bicycle would actually work as well for us for in-town use as this car. And then so we invested in a car with a much longer range that we could then take on the road and do trips out of town with an electric vehicle. Things that may make you nervous charging your EV. How exactly does this charging work? Well, there's actually several different ways of thinking about charging, or several different ways to charge your car. And I should have listed it as one of the benefits of driving an EV, because you can actually fill your tank at home. You don't have to ever drive to a gas station necessarily. There are 2 ways you can charge at home. Level 1 charging means simply plugging your car into a standard 120 volt outlet. Every electric car you'll buy will come with the ability to do this. The only problem is that it's quite slow. So it adds only about 4 miles of range per hour that it's plugged into your electric outlet. Now, if you're mainly using the car around town and you're just going 20 or 30 miles, you come home, you plug it in, and by the next morning, it's fully charged again. No worries. On the other hand, if you're driving the Hyundai Kona and you exhaust the 258 miles of range and pull into your driveway and want to charge it from a 120 volt household outlet, you can do the math on that. It would have to sit there for quite a while to get fully charged. So of course, you could still use a partially charged car. There is, of course, a solution to that problem, which is level 2 charging. Level 2 chargers are actually installed in the car. The charger is actually on board. Typically, will run off a 240 volt power source. That's similar to what an electric clothes dryer would use. The way these are used, typically you will get a piece of called an electric vehicle supply equipment that is mounted on the wall and that has the ability to communicate with the car so that the system can deliver the most optimal voltage for your car. Level 2 chargers, onboard level 2 chargers can usually take somewhere between 3.6 kilowatts and 20 kilowatts of charging power. Fairly typical is 7.2, which will provide you about 25 miles of range per hour. And so if you are using your car a lot, going more than that 20 or 30 miles that you can charge off of the household outlet, then it can be worth investing in one of these level 2 charging equipment. Another advantage of electric cars is that you can often fill up your battery anywhere you stop if they simply have installed a charger. The two examples here on the left is a beautiful charging station, solar powered, out at Lane Community College. There are, I believe, 19 level 2 chargers here, and you can plug your car in and charge while you're going to school or working on campus. Downtown Springfield at the Rebate office, they have a charger out front and allow anyone who wishes to pull in and plug in and charge their vehicle. Chargers can be put in at restaurants, at hotels, at shopping centers, at places, office buildings where people work. And it makes charging up your car really easy to do, oftentimes while you're out doing something else. How do you find those chargers? Well, as everything in the modern world, there is an app for that. In this case, multiple apps. I'll introduce you to one called PlugShare, which is commonly used. And this shows Eugene and Springfield, and each of these little green or orange tabs shows you where one of these chargers is. And if you click on one of them, as I've clicked on the Lane Community College one, it'll pop up information over on the left-hand side of the screen, telling you how many chargers are there, what kind are there. If they're networked, it'll even tell you whether someone's sitting at the particular charger you were thinking about plugging into. This is something you can put on your phone. You can also look at it on your computer screen. Now, what if you are going to be away from home, away from your community, and you want to be able to charge while you're making a trip to Seattle or down to California or over to Idaho? What do you do then? If, say, you have a 500-mile trip and your car only gets 250 miles of range before it needs refilling, and you're not going to have 7 hours to wait for it to fully recharge. There are such a thing as DC fast chargers. You may remember I mentioned those level 2 chargers deliver 3.6 to 20 kilowatts. The DC fast chargers deliver 50 to 350 kilowatts. Cars generally are able to accept an amount of charge that will allow them to get up to 80% charge in 1 hour, assuming you found a charging station that will deliver that. So this is the electric equivalent of a gas station, and these are very expensive to install. They're not the kind of thing you can put in your home, and you'll find dedicated places for these. Though oftentimes they are in shopping center parking lots or near places where there's restaurants and food and something else to do while you wait for your car to be charged, because it can, if you're well depleted and you're trying to get back up towards full, it can take 30 minutes to an hour to do that. One catch with these level 3 chargers is they aren't standardized in terms of who can plug into what. There are 3 different kinds of connectors. The CCS, which models manufactured in Europe and North America tend to use. The CHAdeMO, which is more of an East Asian standard. The Nissan Leaf notably uses this one. And then Tesla has their own proprietary connector and charging system. These DC fast chargers are run not always, but generally by charging company networks like Electrify America, Blink, an EVGO. And typically you can pull up to one of these chargers and stick a credit card in, just like you would do at a gas pump, at least if you were somewhere other than Oregon, where you put your own credit card in a gas pump, and then dispense the electricity as you would with a gas pump. But you can because they are networked, you can also get apps from these various charging companies and be able to arrange payment through the app on your phone and never have to have a credit card touch the machine. I should mention that one of Tesla's unique identifying features is that they have their own network of charging stations and superchargers. And so if a Tesla is the car that you have invested in, then you will tend to use the Tesla system, which is separate from the CCS and CHAdeMO. Most new DC fast chargers that are being built will have both this CCS and CHAdeMO option. Much like if you go to a gas station, you'll have both a gas and a diesel option. I will mention one other app that's useful for charging while traveling. It's called ChargeWay. Doesn't have a website version, but is something you would install on your phone. It has two kind of cool features. One is you plug your car into it and it will pop up chargers that are particularly useful for your car. So this BMW i3 can take 50 kilowatts from a fast charger, which is a number 4. It can also plug into a 6 or a 7. The 7, I believe, is a 350 kilowatt charger. The car will still only pull 50. I can plug into it with an i3, but I'll still only get 50 kilowatts of power at a time. But this helps you find exactly at a glance the charging station that'll be most useful for your car. ChargeWay also allows you to not only plug your car in, but also a travel plan, and then or a destination, and then it will create a travel plan for you, including identifying where are the optimal places to stop along your route as you travel with your electric car. So one last thought on charging. One of my collaborators on this project made a very good point to me, noting that EV charging is something you worry about a lot before you buy an electric car and hardly at all afterwards. We all pretty quickly adapt to the rhythm of charging the car, whether at home or on the road. Our habits change a little, and then it's just normal to plug your car in at home when you notice the gauge looking a little low. And if you're planning a trip, you just think about planning a lunch break during the course of a day's journey, and you plan that lunch break where there's a fast charger available for your car. It's not as big a deal as it seems like when you're just getting into it for the first time. Another thing that makes you nervous, batteries. For instance, safety. Will my batteries catch on fire? Just very briefly, there have been a few highly publicized events with batteries catching on fire. There have been a couple of recalls, one from Hyundai on their Kona EV, one from GM on the Bolt, though that actually ended up having a software fix. Batteries, there are some flammability issues with the lithium-ion batteries that power these cars, but there's also flammability issues with putting an explosive fuel into your gas tank. We're used to riding around with flammable things in our cars. And there's no evidence that electric cars are any less safe than a gas-powered car, and they're subject to the same rigorous regulatory oversight, and there are specific standards for the batteries and battery packs. And the fact that these recalls have happened is, I think, a sign that the system is working. We also have concerns about batteries in terms of longevity. How long will the batteries last? We all know in using rechargeable batteries and other devices that over time, they lose a little of their oomph. They don't keep the flashlight running as long as they used to. And this has been studied, and I'll throw up here one graph where someone looked at Tesla Model S's and Model X's and the remaining mileage and the mileage on remaining battery capacity over time, or actually over distance. So along the bottom of this was a European study, I believe. So on the bottom are distances traveled listed in kilometers. It goes up to 250,000 kilometers, about 150,000 miles. And then it looks at how much battery capacity is left over the as the car exists and makes these journeys. And you can see there is some battery degradation over 150,000 miles, but it's not that much. Your car at the end of 150,000 miles is still going to have a very similar amount of juice as it did at the start. There are a few outliers, like this one dot back here near zero, it dropped to 75%, but that would be just a defective battery, and batteries are warranted. Every car manufacturer selling in the US warranties batteries for at least 8 years and 100,000 miles, and some go for longer. There is a lot of variability. If it's something that's really important to you, it is worth doing some research on. But in general, battery degradation has not been a huge issue for electric cars, whether Teslas or others. Finally, recycling, what happens to expired EV batteries? I would have to say this is a work in progress. There are a lot of people working on this, but with the idea that we should be able to recycle these batteries once they are finished, once they have degraded and can no longer be used in the electric car. Interestingly enough, there are relatively few cars that have finished using their batteries at this point. The electric car technology is still that new. What they have found is that once car batteries are no longer sufficiently chargeable for mobile purposes, they can still be used in stationary applications like battery backups, emergency power, and so forth. And so a lot of EV batteries apparently now are migrating into other uses and continuing into a second life as batteries without being having to be remanufactured at all. So things that may make you nervous, to summarize: figure out how you're going to use the car, where you hope to go with it, and let that help you decide when you're shopping the range of the kind of car that you're likely to use or to need. You probably want to look at that level 2 onboard charging capacity to just to have a sense for whether it's a pretty fast level 2 charger closer to that 20 kilowatts or a slower one down toward 3.6. You'll want to look at the type of DC fast charge connector. And while over time, it probably will matter less and less because stations will have both. You might check places you commonly go and just make sure, are there fast chargers along this route I typically travel that will be compatible with this car? And so they're related to the DC fast charge. And the DC fast charge capability, can it recharge at those at 50 kilowatts, 150 kilowatts, 350 kilowatts, which would be really fast. Someday they're already talking about cars in the megawatts, getting up to 1,000 kilowatts, but we're not there yet. Let's talk about things that save you money. There are incentives for purchasing electric vehicles. The one that's best known and is the most generous is the federal incentive. You can get up to $7,500 federal tax credit for purchasing or leasing a new battery electric vehicle or plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. Now, the credit diminishes if it's a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, depending on the amount of all-electric range it gets. This credit also phases out after a manufacturer sells more than 200,000 cars. So, for example, if you buy a BMW i3, it's a full battery electric vehicle and you can get that full $7,500 tax credit. If you were buying a Ford Fusion Energy, which is a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, it gets about 26 miles of electric range. That tax credit would shrink to $4,600 roughly. If you were buying a Tesla Model 3, you don't get any tax credit at all. Tesla has sold more than 200,000 cars in the US, and so their eligibility for this credit has expired, and so you don't get one. Note also, this is a tax credit, so in order to take advantage of it, you actually have to have tax liability. If you owe the federal government only $3,000 in taxes, that's the most of the federal tax credit you can take is $3,000, and you have to take it the same year that you got the car. The state of Oregon also offers some financial incentives. So there is a $2,500 Oregon Clean Vehicle Rebate for purchasing a new battery electric vehicle, and then the credit diminishes to $1,500 for plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. There's also a $2,500 charge ahead rebate for a new or a used battery electric vehicle or plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. The key for the charge ahead is you have to meet an income eligibility requirement. This is directed at low and moderate income households, but the requirement's quite generous. You can earn earn up to 120% of the area median income for the closest metropolitan statistical area. For the Eugene Springfield area, that means you can earn up to $77,880 at the latest calculation and still qualify for this credit, for this rebate. And these are cumulative, so you can actually get both of these, so up to $5,000 off if you qualify for that charge ahead rebate, and you're buying a battery electric vehicle. This is not a credit, this is a rebate. And so like many rebates, you will generally have to fill out paperwork and send it off to the state. Right now, there's like a 6-month backlog at getting that rebate, so it's not instant. There are some car dealerships, and I believe Kendall Chevrolet is one of them, where you can, which are set up to process the rebates on site. And so they will just work it into the deal you make for buying or leasing the car. And so, but in most cases, you'll actually have to file paperwork to take advantage of this rebate. Finally, there are local incentives. The one that's associated with this workshop, by attending this workshop, Kendall Chevrolet is offering you a $1,000 discount on a Chevrolet Bolt through the end of April. My follow-up email will provide the details on that offer for you. Local utility companies are worth checking out as a prospect for offering discounts or rebates. Particularly, I've noted for installing the electric vehicle supply equipment, the level 2 charging equipment. Here's a list of utilities that are providing, supporting Rev Up and telling us about their programs. This is a lot to process. I'm going to drop this in the email with all these links for you as well, so you can check to see whether your own local utility offers something. Many of them will offer you a rebate or rebate on putting in a level 2 charging equipment. One final deal I mentioned is the used vehicle market. You can oftentimes get a very good deal on a used vehicle, and if it's a vehicle that meets your needs, it can save you a tremendous amount of money. Just last week, I went up on the website of a place up in Portland that deals specifically in used EVs, and you can see they have a number of Nissan Leafs available, just 2 years old, for anywhere between 16 3/4 up to $21,000. They also have, 2019 Chevrolet Bolts for $22,000, $23,000. And look at this down at the bottom, a steal of a deal on a 2016 Chevrolet Spark. That's the exact same car that I had back in 2016 for just $7,000. So if you only need 80 miles of range and an otherwise fully functional car to drive around town, and you'd like to have an EV, something like this is a fabulous way to get a good deal on an electric car. Now we're going to move on to question and answers, but before we move into the general session, I did want to mention that question and answers don't have to stop once we get to the end of this program. You can visit the website of the Emerald Valley Electric Vehicle Association, which I'm a part of and which is hosting this event. www.eveva.org. We also have a service, Ask an Owner. You can write this email, askanowner@eveva.org. And you can ask about a particular car. You can ask something about electric cars generally, and we will match you up with one of our volunteer members, local owners somewhere here in the Lane County area generally, to answer those questions for you. And then I want a special mention for Electrifies, which is a joint project of EWEB, EPUD, Emerald People's Utility District, and Fourth, a nonprofit up in Portland, to provide an EV coach for your electric car buying experience. Put in your email to get started, and they will provide someone to actually coach you through the whole process of figuring out what EV is best for you and where you can go buy one. If you really feel like you need or want someone to hold your hand through this process, Electrifies is the way to go. All right, now we will hop into question and answers right here. And I am going to be joined. I'm going to answer your questions. Phil Barnhart, who introduced me, will be here to answer your questions. And then we also have joining us Juan Serpa Munoz from EWEB and Al LePage, who's our technical expert from EVEVA. He actually has a certificate in electric vehicles that he obtained last year. And hopefully among us, we have the expertise to provide the information you were looking for. And I, again, will point you to the chat box at the bottom of the Zoom screen. And we will, hopefully people have been typing questions in there. I mean, if you haven't already and you have questions, please go ahead and type questions there and we'll just take them in order. And as we move through and get toward the end of the program, we'll give people a chance to pop on their microphone and ask questions too. So I'm just going to start at the top. I know I talk like in a solid stream, so hopefully you're able to follow all that. I should mention we'll be putting a version of this up on our website as well. So if you feel like you need to go back and listen to it again because you missed something, it'll be there. Let's see. Some of the icons on the maps have a wrench. What are those? I think you're referring specifically to the PlugShare app, which shows where charging stations are. Anywhere you plug in the US, the PlugShare will pull up and show you where the charging stations are. And I believe those wrenches are usually associated with vehicle dealerships or repair shops. So it'll let you know there's some other service for your electric car there in addition to the ability to charge. Does anyone else have a different understanding of the wrench on the PlugShare map? Don't think so. That's my best guess. That seems to be what pops up when you point at it. And you can investigate this yourself by going to plugshare.com and pulling it up and then just pointing at a wrench and clicking on it and seeing what it tells you is there. I'm sorry, and Mike Brixius actually answered this question in the chat, the next one down. So that would make me completely wrong. Wrench is a charger with user-related issues. Mike, maybe you could pop on and just explain that. So you're saying that's actually a charger that is not working for some reason. Okay. Okay, I thought it was it indicated a place like a dealership or a shop that also had other services. But what you say makes sense. And I may have just been making a bad assumption there. I hope I'm not discrediting my information altogether by not having paid careful attention to that. Okay. Maybe that's where I got that idea from.
And I think one of the reasons, this is Phil, one of the reasons why Mike hasn't paid attention lately is because he has those plugins at home that you were talking about. And so he doesn't use any of the local chargers anymore.
One thing you find is that most of your charging is done at home. And you just never see gas station or something equivalent to a gas station anymore. Though that's not true necessarily for people who have more obstacles to charging at home. For instance, someone who lives in an apartment building where there isn't a charger, which is an issue that lots of people are working to try to remedy, though it will take quite some time.
Hey, Charlie, Al LePage here.
Yes.
I was just going to give you guys some hot updates. Volkswagen came out with an announcement a couple days ago that they figured out maybe how to drop the cost of batteries by 50%. And they're looking at, and what that means is because the price of an electric vehicle is high because of the price of batteries, that could be an extremely big deal move forward here in the next few years in really dropping that total cost of ownership and the price of an electric car. Also, that Tesla and GM 200,000 units, there is apparently an act called the Green Act in Congress right now, which would actually set the ceiling back to 600,000 units, which would mean that Tesla and GM could be eligible for that $7,500 tax credit again. And that Green Act is also looking at used vehicles. They have to be 2 years old and some other, qualifications, but they're looking at a $2,500 tax credit. That's the Green Act. So those are some really hot news items that have just kind of showed up,
Yes,
since,
thank you, Al. Hey,
then.
and Al,
That's all.
I'm gonna toss this next question at you too. Don't go away. Tom McDonald's asking, does cold weather affect range, performance, and charging speeds?
Does it affect range?
Does cold weather affect range or performance or charging speeds?
Yes, typically you get less range with colder vehicles. There are ways to, work around that. Driving just a little bit slower, maybe 5 miles an hour slower, heating up your car before you go with it fully charged, that helps out. And using the seat, if you want to have instant warmth, also uses less energy.
The seat warmer, you mean there?
Hold the energy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the seat warmer.
The seat warmer, right. That's what I meant. The seat warmer. Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
Instead of using the blower to heat the whole compartment, use the
Right.
seat warmer for heat instead to save energy.
Right. So in terms of affecting range, well, yes. And so that would affect, in a sense, the performance because it wouldn't get quite the range, but overall the performance is going to be the same. And charging speeds are the same. So I think that answers that question very specifically.
Thank you, Al. Next question from David. Oh, Phil, did you have something to add?
I was just going to add that gasoline-powered cars also get less range in cold weather, but nobody seems to know that because when the arrow gets down toward the E, you go to the gas station and fill it up.
That's a really good point. From David Lloyd, Tesla apparently has its own Tesla destination charger network. Can these chargers only be used with Teslas or can any EV use them? Those can only be used with Teslas. So Tesla is, I sometimes compare them to Apple computers compared to other computers. It's kind of like if you go Tesla, you kind of go into their ecosystem and you are part of Tesla and you don't really mix with the others and vice versa. So Phil, were you raising your hand to say something else?
Yeah, I was simply going to say that I haven't checked lately, but not too long ago, Amazon had on their website a device that would allow you to use the Tesla destination charger. It's a level 2 charger, and use that to plug into your standard J1772 charger charge port in your non-Tesla car. That's a port that every car has to charge, but it's an adapter. It costs a couple of $100. The other thing,
and that is only for level 2 charging, and so
right.
For those superchargers, there's just no way to do that.
That's right. Doesn't work for superchargers, but for people who are staying overnight at a hotel that has a Tesla destination charger, and you have this adaptive device, you can charge there just as if you were a Tesla.
All right.
And Phil LePage, I think you can take a Tesla and charge into a CHAdeMO as an adapter for that. Isn't that right, Phil?
Yes, correct. Yes.
All right. Lynn Woodrich is asking, what is the cost at the pump for electricity? I think I'll let Juan take this. I will say that it's, for just a home car charging at home, it's the same as the electricity you otherwise buy from EVEVA. But I think your question probably is more related to those DC fast chargers, which are variable, but I'll let Juan explain why.
So I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question, and I'll answer, but going back, I just looked at the FlexShare customer support, and they do say that if you see a station listing with a wrench symbol on the map, it means you need to take a closer look because the location is either under repair or coming soon.
Oh, very good. Juan, thanks for checking that out for us.
And
So the question
so-
for you is, I'm going to kind of phrase this and put this into terms of DC fast charging. And if Lynn, if that's not what you wanted to know, let me know. But what is the cost at the pump for electricity if you're pumping from a DC fast charger?
So that varies because, so now you're talking about the individual pricing that any DC fast charging may have, and those are going to change. So it's hard to, one thing that I can, perhaps a way in which I can answer the question is there's something called the e-gallon, which is if you were to compare a gallon of gasoline, how much would it cost in electricity? And so with EVEVA rates, a gallon of gasoline to get the same miles, kind of like of an electric vehicle, is under 80 cents. But I'm not sure that's answering the question because in trying to see how much it's going to cost on a DC fast charging station, I mean, the rates are, depending if you're going with Electrify America or something else, it's 39 cents. Depending if you're a member, that changes per kilowatt hour. As a homeowner, you pay about 10 cents a kilowatt hour or about $300 a year for driving 10,000 miles or so in EVEVA service territory.
So it's pretty easy to calculate if you're mostly charging at home. For the DC fast chargers, it really is just there's lots of factors that go into it, and including how much the company that's providing the fast charger is being charged by the utility whose service area they happen to be in. And it gets complicated for why there's so much variability, but it is hard to discern sort of a general rule for the price for a DC fast charger while you're traveling. But what you can do is get on to, I believe PlugShare usually provides generally provides the cost for plugging in at a particular fast charger. And what you could do is go to that app and go around to places that you might drive to and just click on those fast chargers. Those will be orange in PlugShare. And just read in the left-hand pane how much it would cost to, what the rate is in different places that you might be likely to visit.
And one more thing, Charlie, if I may add.
Yeah.
So again, an EVEVA customer pays about 10 cents per kilowatt hour. That's the unit of energy that we sell you. Some stations charge you 49 cents a kilowatt hour. So charging at home makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like eating at home or eating out in a way also. So it makes a lot of sense once you have your electric vehicle to try to do as much as possible charge at home. But of course, when you're traveling, you're going to go with a DC fast charging station, and that's what is needed. But Electrify America, which is an entity that provides these stations, tries to maintain a consistent cost that is at their own cost because of utility demand rates.
Kelsey is tossing us a difficult question. If you could buy any electric car, what would you choose and why? And this is a difficult question because we all have different needs. And it's a difficult question in another way, and that the number of models of electric car is about to expand, maybe not exponentially, but more than just doubling in the next couple of years. There are many models of electric cars and some entire new electric car manufacturers that are going to be showing up here. So it's a moving target. This is in this realm, the technology is changing quickly. The cars are changing quickly. But in the end, you have to go back to why you use the car, how you plan to use the car. And so if you're going to be using it mostly on the road and traveling, you're going to be looking at range. If you're using it mostly on the road and you need to carry a bunch of ski gear with you, then you look at something where you can fit your ski gear. An awful lot of selecting an electric car will come down to the same things that you consider when you're purchasing any car. How many people can sit in it? How much cargo space is there? How comfortable are the seats? So for those reasons, it's very hard to just say which electric car would you get. Anyone else have something to add to that, Phil or Al?
Yeah, Charlie, Al LePage. Just as a real quick example of that, I have a Chevy Bolt, and it allows me to go up to Portland and back in terms of range. But what I really find is I don't drive any more than 10 or 15 miles when I go out in the Eugene area. So what that means is instead of purchasing, the $22,000 I spent on my Bolt, I could have just bought one of those used Chevy Sparks for $7,000 and gotten around just fine. So once again, it just kind of depends who you are and how you use your car and what you need, just like Charlie said. But I thought that's a good kind of an extreme example of spending $22,000 for a 240-mile car versus, $7,000 for an 80-mile range car. And for me, the 80-mile range car would typically work just good enough.
Yeah, I would just add to that, that it really does depend on what you use a car for. If you're a traveling salesman and you're going to put, I don't know, some number, 500 miles a week on a car, and you need to be able to keep a schedule, probably you want a car with a very significant range. And of course, depending on what you want to carry along with you, that will determine the size of the car that you need. A couple hundred miles range is probably really critical. On the other hand, if this is your second car and you're only driving around town, or you're older and you're only driving around town, a car that has a range of 40 or 50 or 60 miles, assuming you can plug in every day, is absolutely adequate. And so it depends on what you're trying to do. In terms of the current situation, which is changing very fast, the best most comprehensive system for charging quickly is the Tesla Supercharger system, for which you'd want a Tesla if you can afford it. They're still fairly expensive, although the prices are coming down. On the other hand, if you take an occasional trip and you don't care if there's a bit of a detour along the way, then any car that has a range of 200 miles or more, which most of them do now, will work just fine for you. So a lot of it depends on your budget, your individual taste, and most importantly, what are you actually going to do with that car? I had a long chat with a woman who came to one of our early events, who lived up the Mackenzie River. I forget exactly how far up. I think it was Vida. She owned a pickup truck that got about 12 miles to the gallon. She needed to keep that pickup truck, even though it was an old junker. So we discussed it, and she agreed that she could get by very well with that used Leaf that Al was talking about for most of her driving, and she could leave that pickup truck parked and save herself a gigantic amount of money on fuel.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Next question from Lynn. What is the cost of a new battery for a BEV? Al, would you like to weigh in on that?
Sure. This is a fairly common question. And, it's something I researched before I purchased my vehicle. The truth of the matter is batteries have a warranty, usually. It's federal law basically for 8 years or 100,000 miles, whichever comes first. Okay. So if you drive 12,000 miles a year, that's 8 years, so really you're not looking at replacing a battery. It's not like a flashlight where the batteries run out. It's like a flashlight where you use rechargeable batteries, and those batteries don't always stay at, perfect like when they were new, but you can use them, I don't know how many scores of times, so the bottom line is people really aren't replacing batteries in their car. That's just something that's not being done. The amount of range, say, will decrease over years. But like with the Chevy Bolt that I have, that I get about 240 miles to the charge, maybe, I don't know, in 10 years, maybe I'll only get 200 miles of range, and then maybe in 20 years, I'll be down to 180 miles. So it's not like you actually replace the battery. So your question's kind of like, what's the cost of a new battery? And also, like I just mentioned, Volkswagen made this incredible announcement the other day that they figured out a way to knock down the price of batteries to 50%. So let's say it was $8,000 if I said it to you a couple of weeks ago. If that technology becomes reality, which it seems Volkswagen is indicating it is, then it'd be $4,000. I'm just doing hypothetical examples here. But the important message is we really don't replace the batteries. That just doesn't happen because of the warranties and everything else.
You know, it's the kind of thing that gets talked about in the media, but isn't actually a practical concern for people who have electric cars by and large.
Yeah, I have an electric car that I bought in 2012 that has lost maybe 30 miles out of its 260-mile range. And so it absolutely doesn't matter. And one of the reasons why people are not getting a clear answer from us about what batteries cost is, frankly, none of us know, because none of us have had to do it.
I mean, 2012 was a very early year to get an electric car, and that's just 9 years ago, probably less than 9 years. So, you know, we're just hitting the edge at the end of the warranty there.
And battery chemistry has improved every year, and the batteries will last longer than the one in my old car. Now old car, yeah.
David asked, what about road use taxes and fees? There's no gas tax, obviously, but are there other fees? Phil, would you like to tackle that one?
Yeah, I can talk about that. The state of Oregon has added, there are two ways you can do this. They've added a registration charge. I just renewed for 2 years, and I think it was $306 to renew. The standard fee is about $160, if I remember correctly. These are rough numbers, and the numbers get lost in my head. And the reason for that is to help pay for the roads. Gasoline drivers who use gasoline or diesel help pay for the roads because there's a tax on the gallons of gasoline or diesel that you buy for your light vehicle. The other way you can pay your share for the road fee is to actually sign up for a study program that the state of Oregon has operating now, where they actually keep track of your mileage, and they charge you, I think at registration time, or maybe once a year. I think it's slightly more than a penny a mile for your road use, the road user fee. Instead of the gas tax or this extra registration fee. That's the way it works in Oregon. Of course, you don't pay any federal gas tax, which is a significant amount for a federal system. And the federal government doesn't yet have any kind of a tax on the use of your car on the roads, on the electric vehicles. You do for gasoline and diesel. Now, let me just finish it. In Oregon, big trucks, the heavy trucks, pay a white mile tax, which is why you see those weigh stations along the way where the big trucks are required to pull over and get weighed. But that doesn't apply to any of us.
All right, thank you, Phil. So Jack is asking if websites tell you if all chargers at a given site are occupied, or they first come, first serve. And so you're referring to an app or website like PlugShare. And the answer is yes, they will tell you if they're occupied, if they are networked. And not all of them are. So for instance, I put up the photo that had someone charging at the Rebate office in downtown Springfield. That's not networked. You know, you drive by, you see if someone's there, and if no one's there, you can plug in and charge. The ones that are run by the charging network companies like Blink and EVEVA and Electrify America, those you generally can look at the app and it will tell you whether or not it's available, whether someone's sitting there right at the time you're thinking about pulling in. They are, as far as I know, all first come, first serve. Certainly, there may be some somewhere on the planet that you can reserve, but by and large, first come, first serve. Generally, two things on that. One is in my travels around Oregon, I have yet to get stuck waiting for someone to finish at a fast charger. I was out in Walla Walla in the fall and went through Hood River a couple of times, and I was the only person sitting at a bank of 4 DC fast chargers in a Walmart parking lot in Hood River. That said, as more and more people purchase electric cars, it's something worth being aware of, and particularly in places where there may only be one charger. Like right now, there is one DC fast charger in Burns, Oregon. There's one in John Day. If your trip depends on stopping there, you're not going to know till you get there whether someone's sitting at it, but or whether someone's going to pull in just ahead of you. It may be networked and you could find out, but you're already have planned your trip through John Day by the time, before you would have any idea whether someone would happen to be there at the same time you arrived. And it's worth being cautious about that. We're the Emerald Valley Electric Vehicle Association and others are working really hard at trying to get the state to promote building out a really robust charging network way in advance of when the demand is there to need it. Right now, particularly traveling in areas along the major interstate corridors and the bigger cities, you generally don't, my experience has been you don't have a problem finding a vacant one. All right. Randy has asked a couple of questions specific to a Model Y, and Mike Bricktis has written back a couple of things. Randy, those are perfect. That's the perfect kind of question for ask an owner. Something about a particular car that you want to know about. As it happens, we have someone on our list who owns a Model Y. And I know I believe we exchanged some email already. So I am going to send your email address off to him and he should get in touch with you and you can ask him about Model Ys. And he's extremely enthusiastic and will be happy to share that information. And if there's, for any of you, if there's a particular car you're interested in and you would like to ask a question to an existing owner, write ask an owner at eveva.org and we'll try to match you up with someone. And again, you'll get an email with that link and information tomorrow sometime.
And Charlie, Al LePage.
Yes, Alan.
I noticed Randy Roan's questions, and they look like the kind of question that really is best answered by sitting in the driver's seat of an electric car. So I believe there's a Tesla dealership in Portland. So you might want to go up there and sit in one of those cars. I will tell you this. I went to a dealership in the Portland area and my first time I sat in an electric car. I was curious. I said, can I take one for a test drive? It was a Nissan Leaf. And son of a gun, if I didn't end up buying for my first car, it was a Nissan Leaf not too long after that. So once you sit in the driver's seat, once you get to see if the headrest works or whatever you like, and if the seat works, you also get to feel what the car is like. And the power of sitting in the seat cannot be understated. I'll just put it that way. So I invite Randy Roan to go sit in a Tesla and take a drive.
And can I add that when this virus is behind us and we're able to have in-person events again, we will have some events that we'll probably schedule with other people, like Bring or the Science Factory or one of those places. And our members are very, very good about bringing their cars and allowing other people to sit in them and even drive them. Of course, that hasn't happened for the last year plus because we haven't figured out how we can stay safe. But pretty soon, next few months, we may be able to do that again.
Great. And then the last thing here in the chat, Jack has mentioned that the Consumer Reports annual car issue has rated Bolt and Hyundai Kona very highly for those with a high range, which yes, I think it's actually been true for a couple of years now that those have rated quite high. The Kia Niro is very comparable to the Kona as well and has often been rated really well. And with that, since I don't see any additional questions in the chat, I am going to say we're going to wind it up here for those of you who are ready to be done. We're a little past the time I normally target, but if you do want to stay online and just turn your mic on and your video and chat some more, a few of us can hang around to answer more questions. And again, you will get an email tomorrow with links, details on the Kendall Chevrolet offer, and all sorts of useful tidbits for you as you head off into your electric vehicle experience. So thank you all for coming.